Let me try to ask you, although you hate these questions, but why did you not take that direction? Why do you show us the pleasantness, the happiness
It's
of
like
life?
asking, why did Renoir paint the way he did? Why did the Impressionists create a certain world of beauty as opposed to, let's say, a painter like Otto Dix? I once actually asked Diane, whom I knew, Diane Arbus, if she knew Otto Dix, because I thought she might feel a certain sympathy for him because she was attracted to morbid, strange kind of things. She once called me up when she was going to New York and said, do you have any strange, morbid places that I could go to when I am in London?
Did you know of any?
I told her I didn't know of any, but I tried to think about it. I think the search for beauty is a very valid occupation and preoccupation. I don't feel anyone should apologize for Matisse's paintings. I don't think that those areas of art that strive for beauty need to be questioned. I think it was Renoir who said, he was asked about his painting, and he said, life can be very miserable. Why do we have to show it?
Is that your motto as well?
Well, I've probably done photographs since I've done all. Oops, that wasn't very good.
You can handle it. The only thing is, I have to repair it. I'm very bad at this. There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
What was I saying?
Renoir. No, were you going to say that you did?
I don't
Work.
see. If you take the history of art, there are large areas where people were striving for beauty.
So how come that you have to, because that's what I read in interviews, that
I
you have
am
to defend yourself
I
sometimes.
happen to love, let's say, Leon Levinstein's photographs, and Leon Levinstein is not an easy person to look at for certain people. I like Walker. You know, there's a famous photograph of Walker Evans of a barbershop. And I think that photograph, and Howard may have been involved, I'm not sure, I don't know, but that photograph at some point went for $250,000. The photograph is a barbershop in a pathetic, poor, I believe, run-down kind of neighborhood. The man paid $250,000 for the photograph. That man, I don't think, would, under any circumstances, have wanted to go into that barbershop and get a haircut, or even wanted to go into the barbershop and just look around. So photography, what does photography do? There are lots of people preoccupied with rendering depicted unattractive things who in their personal life might not want to be around whatever it is that
But you never had that. So if you say that happened...
But I'm sure if you went through my work, maybe not. I don't know. Someone informed me recently that I was mistaken if I didn't think there are areas of strange unhappiness in my work. Now, there's a photograph I took of a man, a reflection. You have a man here, you have a man here, you have business there. It's been reproduced quite a bit. Someone described that man as immersed in anxiety. Well, I didn't see that. In fact, I don't think he was anxious. I think he was just looking. That's about it.
Is it annoying to you if somebody is explaining your work in this way?
No, it doesn't annoy me because there's nothing that you can do when someone looks at your work and forms certain conclusions. I mean, if a certain kind of liberal, what is it? A liberal, you know, the women who are against certain things, the
Feminists.
yes, the feminists. A certain kind of feminist
Very
lady.
strange group of women
A certain
you
kind
didn't
of
want to be with.
a certain kind of feminist lady doesn't like the idea of nudes. Women are superior. They're not nudes. I lived with a woman who had a rather beautiful body, who was also. I have never equated sexlessness with femininity.
Did you tell her?
No,
And how was her response?
No, Soames could pose for a nude 1 minute, and the next minute could be discussing something in a very intelligent. There is a notion among some people that the sexuality of a woman ought to be in the service of higher things. And sometimes it's in the service of what it's in the service of. You know, but people read anything.
You did great work on that. I mean, you started out as a photographer of fashion.
Yeah.
But the women that you photographed, they look extraordinarily beautiful, erotic.
Well, they were beautiful. They were beautiful. You know, when you do fashion photography, you are basically, let's not be romantic about, they're selling clothes. And they want the clothes to look nice, and they want the women to look nice, and sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes, you know, in a magazine like Harper's Bazaar, they would actually show an editorial photograph to an advertiser to find out whether he liked the way his particular dress looked, which I thought was maybe not the right thing to do, but I had very little to say about anything. So, you know, I don't think there is nothing that anyone can do that will interfere with certain people's talent for confusion. If someone wants to endow a photograph of mine with something that I never saw and that I never knew, there's not too much I can do about it. If you're very lucky and you do work, and there are certain people who admire it, who like it, who buy it, you're very lucky. You can't control. No one can control. Matisse at one point was considered a purveyor of ugliness. Mary Cassatt, who is a much more conventional artist, thought that he was a faker.
Have you got an explanation for why your work was discovered and appreciated rather late in your career?
Van Gogh sold 2 or 3 paintings. He died wishing and writing about maybe earning a living. People explain he wasn't the right time, whatever that means. There's no, people are sometimes, in their perceptions, rather stupid. And there's not too much you can do. You know, Manet was attacked by people for being this terrible, horrible artist who was destroying the foundations of what was good in the world. And today we look at it and we're mystified that anyone could have felt this way or said so.
So did you feel a bit like Van Gogh today when you saw his?
No, I didn't feel like Van Gogh because unfortunately Van Gogh Van Gogh is so special that one has no right to feel like him, you know what I mean. But
Being discovered late in life, that's what I
what?
meant.
Well, I don't, you know, there is such a thing as having a taste for a career. There are people who know how to go about having one. They know what to do, they know how to do it, they know. In the world that I have lived, there are sometimes very bad photographers who make a good living. And there are sometimes very fine photographers, very sensitive photographers, who quite often don't make a living or have a difficult time, who eventually even give up. So there's no real explanation for it.
You're fortunate or you're not. That's basically it. Somebody picks you up and says this work
No,
is great.
someone doesn't pick you up. You pick yourself up. You pick yourself up. When Marilyn Monroe, you know, they talk about Marilyn Monroe becoming famous. I think Marilyn Monroe must have photographed. By the time she was 13, she'd posed for every photographer in the universe, looking for a way to attract attention. The story might be that she was in a drugstore and she was discovered. There are always these stories about people without making any attempt or discovery. It usually turns out that the people were making a great many attempts. There is a kind of romantic notion that someone is sleeping in a meadow and someone else comes along on a white horse and takes them off and gives them a job on television.
It doesn't happen.
The people who are on television work very hard to get the Kardashian sisters. I've never quite understood why.
Are they known here in the Netherlands? Do you know these? Yeah.
The Kardashians are, you don't know what there is such a thing as maybe, I don't know whether it existed always. There's such a thing as famous people who do nothing.
Paris Hilton, another nice example. Paris Hilton is in the same
Paris Hilton. Well, I mean, she did something. She was born into the Hilton family.
That's a career, yeah.
That in itself is a good start before going off into. But the fact remains, some of these people, you have no idea why they keep being mentioned, why everyone is intrigued with them. You don't understand what is it. I don't understand what is it that attracts people to fame. What is so wonderful about certain famous people?
You didn't like them, the famous people.
I don't have anything against them. I've known many I liked Gina Lola Brigida. She was actually taking nice pictures. I liked Sophia Loren. I spent 3 days with her taking pictures for a magazine, and I thought she was very, very nice. And I thought I had nothing against her. Who I liked Jane Fonda. I knew that Jane Fonda now is busy writing. She can't rest. She doesn't have enough attention. What is it about certain people that they aspire and need attention?
Do you know?
I don't know. I know my friend Henry, who was an art director. Henry liked he was a very fine art director, and he won many gold prizes, and the gold prizes were on the wall, and he enjoyed having the gold prizes, and he was not flagrantly You know, he wasn't arrogant about it at all, but he liked a certain kind of attention. And then there are people who don't care. And then there are people who say they don't care, but they do care.
In which category are you?
Well, you know, when you get old, you behave very badly sometimes, and you talk too much, and you say things you shouldn't say. You know, when I read interviews, I think to myself, why don't I have the necessary restraint? Why can't I? I imagine an interview where someone is asking me a question and I'm answering in very short sentences, you see. I don't lose, I'm not wandering off into other places, which I tend to do.
Yeah, which I like, actually. But
Yeah.
continue, please.
So I ask myself, why can't I do that? I will try. Before coming here, I was going to try. I was going to be.
You're doing fine. You're doing absolutely fine.
I was going to be restrained and self-controlled, and I wasn't going to wander off into strange, incoherent places.
They'll warn you. This is a Dutch audience. Don't worry. They're very tough on people.
They're very tough on people.
We're rude.
Yeah.
But from the people of your generation, photographers, who would you say had the talent but also was a relentless self-promoter?
Well, I mean, someone like Avedon, you can't accuse him of being indifferent to the pursuit of fame, but he was a very gifted man. He fit in. You see, there are photographers who don't quite in, like Lou Fowler, although, you know, he complained, you know, he told me he was ashamed of his fashion. So I said to him, why are you ashamed of your fashion? You did beautiful fashion pictures. But he was a friend of Robert Frank. And since Robert Frank had outdistanced him in the area of fame, Robert was becoming, having done The American, was becoming. So he felt, you see, I believe that in life, there is something that I now call, I've given it a name. It's the Stürzi factor.
What's that?
The Stürzi factor goes like this. You are incompetent and you are lazy. It in no way interferes with your advance. You go on to the next step. People are worried about you because you're not doing your job, but that doesn't have any effect. You make more progress. Eventually, you become an ambassador. I did know such a person who eventually, in spite of all his failings, his incompetence, his everything, ended up being the ambassador to Ireland. Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe it was appropriate that he was the ambassador to Ireland. I don't know. Maybe he wouldn't have been the ambassador to France. I don't know. The point is, what is the point?
That was my next question, actually.
The point is that there are people who have a talent for a career.
Have you ever been jealous because of somebody
No,
like
I never
Never jealous?
No, the truth of the matter
Avedon,
is...
Richard Avedon, because he could sell his work and
no, you know what I wished? I wished that I had a little of his money. I wish that I...
That's an element of jealous.
No, but that's not... I didn't want to be Avedon. I liked what I did. I even understood that there are people in the world to whom my work might mean something that Avedon doesn't. It isn't that I'm trying to belittle him, because it's like saying Lou Fowler is inferior to Avedon. Many people don't even know Lou Fowler is. He's an extremely gifted, remarkable photographer, and when I was at working for Harper's Bazaar, I once suggested to an editor who thought that she was being humiliated because she had to work with Lou Fowler, and I said to her, why don't you buy some of his prints? And she said, are you crazy? Why should I buy Lou's prints, you know? He should buy Irving Penn, should buy Evans. And the point is, isn't it true, and this isn't an invention of mine, that in the world we live in, there are people who succeed and there are people who don't. And the people who succeed are not always better than the people who don't. And it's possible that one can have a life. I don't happen to admire success. When I was, my brother and I look back on it now, we had some rather